This one is HDRPrep. So the idea with this is we have an HDR image that we shot, or a sequence of images, and we need to clean them up. I've mentioned before HDRs, and basically what they are is a 360 image of an environment, right? So if I took a bunch of pictures panoramically here, I aimed my camera up, took a bunch of pictures, aimed my camera down, took a bunch of pictures, that would give me a 360. An HDR 360 has different exposures. So basically I have like light settings, dark settings, medium settings, the whole range. The more I have, typically the more detail I have. So on these ones I've kind of cheated a little bit and used a 360 camera. So it's a lot easier to do because all I have to do is click the button and it will take 3 pictures, low, medium, and high each time. So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. You can see a dark one, a super bright one, and a medium one. Inside of, these are all on the Nuke folder on the server on my Dropbox. So you'll see pictures there, oops, and you'll see pictures here, okay? And they're all inside each one of these. Now there's 2 sets of folders, so the first 4 are these ones here. The second 4 is the Glassway, like the first scene that we shot. So you have to rename them because for whatever reason it doesn't like them all being the same name. Okay, so I've renamed all of these, just whatever, it doesn't matter. If I see some that are the exact same thing, I can get rid of those. Oops, I need extra large icons. So if I look at these images, I can see pretty much that this one, this one, this one, and probably that one are all the same, okay? Because what it does, it takes one at a regular resolution and then goes down a step and then up a step and takes it. And then when I change my settings, it goes down 2 steps, does regular, and goes up 2 steps, okay? So you're going to end up with these ones that are pretty much the same. I'm going to delete 3 of them so I at least have 1. This one looks pretty similar to that one. I'm going to leave it there still. I'm fine with that. These are really dark. That's fine. Cool. I'm going to close this because I don't know why that's open. All right. So my first step in this is I put them in my folder and I just put them all inside the same area, and I'm just going to rename them all to HDR. Okay. And Windows will automatically rename them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter. Photoshop will actually go through and figure it out. So now I need to put all of these into one image. So I'm going to go into Photoshop, go to Automate, Merge to HDR Pro, and I'm going to find my files. So this is going to be on my P drive, and here, HDRPrep, there. So there's all my images. So Photoshop's going to attempt to align all my images. There shouldn't be any offset because all of them are in the same exact spot. But in case they're not, it'll go through and do that. So it's going to go through, load each image into Photoshop, make sure they're all lined up, and then it's going to put them into one image, and that'll be an HDR. And typically an HDR can be used inside Nuke. You can actually use it to, like, in our environment that we have where we had the banners, we had some basic lighting on there. You could actually use like the HDR to add reflections into the scene. So if I were to put like a little chrome robot on the desk and I wanted him to have reflections, I could reflect some of this HDR into him and it would look more like it's in the scene versus not having this. That's cool. So I'm going to set this to 32-bit. That's perfect. Okay, so this is my HDR. So the idea with it is that if I turn that off, if I crank this, I can get into the really dark areas, like way under the desk here. And then if I crank this the other way, I can still see the light that's outside. If this was a regular picture, I would basically be stuck with something kind of like this, where the inside looks good, but the outside is washed out. That's the whole point of an HDR, is that you can see a full range of colors, okay? So I'm going to hit okie dokie. All right, so there's our HDR. So now we'll have to see how this comes into Nuke. So I'm going to save this, HDRPrep images. I'll just save it there. HDR, I'm going to just call this raw because we haven't touched it. And I'm going to save this as an HDR format. This is a 32-bit image. In the past, we've used 8-bit images. That's typically what you've been using. This is 32 bits. An 8-bit can save 16 million colors. A 32-bit can save like trillions and billions of colors. So HDR, HDR raw, that's cool, and save. Okay, so I'm going to go into Nuke now, and I'm going to set up my project. So I'm going to hit S. I'm going to go to my folder, tell it where I was working, right there. Save my file here, so I'll put this into that. Sarcona underscore HDR prep 01. All right, and then for my resolution, I'll get to this in a second, but we're going to have to come back and change that. Okay, so I'm going to read in that HDR. 60, nope, too far. And then I'll view this. Now, if I just view this like this is what I get. Just the same image I had in Photoshop. If I take this and I add it to a sphere, and then I go inside Nuke, you can see that I can actually like look around now. And this is basically like you can see that's where I actually put the little 360 cameras right on the desk there on those papers. And now I can actually like look around this environment. Now, if this is a 3D class, we could actually use this as full lighting information and reflections and whatever else to really make this item feel like it's sitting on the desk or wherever we put it, okay? So now the purpose of this is that I need to clean it up. This white box on the bottom is a no-go. I can't have that in my image. I need to get rid of that, okay? Especially if, let's say, I wanted to use this as a scene where I would put something in this view, you know, I can't have that white box there, all right? Sometimes if you take these traditionally, you may have a tripod at that point. So again, something you'd remove is the tripod or whatever. So the whole purpose of this assignment is that we want to be removing that white dot and doing an extra cleanup that we need to make sure that this image is clean enough to use out in the real world, okay? Even like this seam here is not, you know, it's not ghastly, but we may want to touch that up a little bit, okay? So the way this works is I have a sphere, and what I need to do is I need to convert the sphere into a cube, okay? Because right now, if I try to go into this, and I try to clone stamp this out, that's going to be very difficult for me to try to figure out what those pixels are doing, especially if you look up here at the top, like, what is that, right? So if I take this sphere and I convert it into a cube, that would be easier because I'd basically just have like a bottom piece that I could just touch up that bottom flat piece. So I'm going to set the sphere aside for a second and switch back to this view and view that. Okay, so I'm going to go to spherical transform. There it is. And the spherical transform allows me to take one kind of distorted image and put it to something else. An HDR is called a lat-long map. So I'm going to go over here and choose lat-long map. And then I want to convert this into a cube. Okay, so basically what I'm doing now is I'm looking at this cube through like one shot. Okay, so imagine I have a camera and it's just aimed right at that side. And as I go here and I rotate, you can see how it's like actually like in that environment. I can actually like rotate around the environment, which is again pretty awesome. And because this is an HDR, I again have that ability to play with those values to really blow it out or adjust the coloring or whatever. So to get this to come out in the correct way, I need to export a cube, one for every side of the cube. So how many sides does a cube have? 6. Boom. So we need to make this a square image, okay? So the height of my texture, if I look at this texture here, is 4018, okay? So that's as big as this top of the image is. Now part of this, just so you can see it, it's probably about here, I guess, probably about there, is where the top of this comes in, and the bottom comes in like about there. So the entire height of the side of the cube doesn't need to be 4,000 or 2,000, which is what the height is. So I'm going to set this to, let's say, where's my squares? Right here. So I'm going to set this to a 2048. And we'll see how that looks. So that looks all right. Let's see what 1000 looks like. I think I want to go with 2000 because that'll be, yeah, this is a bit too grainy. So I'm going to go with 2000. You can see a little bit of grain right there on the banners and the signs. That looks a little bit cleaner. All right, so let's go with that. Still thinking now. There we go. Okay. So we're going to take this to 2000. Might be a little bit overkill, but it's fine. And then I'm going to reset this to 0. All right. So I need to basically make 6 of these, 1 for each side of my cube, that I could use. Okay. So I'm going to delete this sphere. I don't need that sphere. So I'm going to take this and copy it and paste it and connect it and then view it. Okay. So the first one, there was no rotation in Y. I'm going to jump into Maya just so you can kind of see what we're actually doing here. So here's my cube. I'm going to put a camera in the middle of this. I'm going to make sure I can see my cameras so that makes more sense. Oh, there we go. All right. All right. So I have this camera right now has no rotation on it, so it's just shooting on this back face. So now I need to get this to rotate 90 degrees to get to that side. Okay, so that'll be the other side of the cube. So I'm going to take this rotate Y and put it at 90. There we go. And then I'm going to paste this again, drag that, view it, and then I'm going to rotate the camera again. And that'll be another 90, so then that'll be 180. Are you updating? 1. 0. 1. Oops. I accidentally put that one to the wrong one there. That one's 90, and then this one is 180. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So then I'll copy this again, paste it again. And then what's 180 plus 90? 270. Horrible. Horrible. All right. So now we have 4 sides, right along the edge. Now the last one that we need to do, or the last 2 we need to do, is one facing directly up and one facing directly down. It doesn't matter which direction we go. It's still going to be the same thing, whether I go this way or that way or whatever. Okay. So I'm going to grab just this first one because it makes the most sense to have no rotation here. And I'm just going to paste it on this side and then rotate it up. Now I don't know if it's X or Z. Most likely it'll be one or the other because Y did the other one. I have to view this so I can see it. There we go. So in that case it was X, so that's good. And then let's paste another one. Let's copy or attach it. Let's view this, and then we'll go -90 to get to the other side. And look right there, there's that circle, okay? Nice and clean, much easier to have to clean up versus that big white stretch along the bottom, right? Okay, so this is our box. So we have the bottom, we have the top, we have straight ahead, left, left more, and then left all the way, right? Eventually these are going to come back together, okay? So I want to see, I broke them all apart. Now I need to put them all back together again, okay? So I'm going to go into another spherical transform. And this one, oops, I said spherical transform. There it goes. There we go. So this one is going to be taking a cube and turning it into a lat long map, okay? Now the second I do that, what's going to happen is I get this. Instead of just having one input, I get all of these inputs because it wants to know what's facing in the positive X, the negative X, the positive Z, the negative Z, the positive Y, and the negative Y, okay? Incredibly confusing, I'm sure. Don't worry about it because there's ways that we can make this a bit simpler, okay? the easiest way to do this is just connect stuff and see what happens. So let's say I'm going to connect, if one X is on one side, okay, so if I go here and I reset this, okay, so let's pretend that this right here, that this right there is positive X. So what's this one going to be? Negative X, right? So if this is positive Z, negative Z. Positive Y, negative Y, right? So if we just keep that in mind, that will make the whole process a lot easier, because we know that we did these ones in some sort of order. Oops. So this one has no rotation on it. The one next to it has 90 degrees. So those two will not be like a positive X and negative X, because they're directly next to each other. So most likely this one and this one, let's say, are positive X and negative X. These two are probably positive and negative Z. And then the top and the bottom are probably positive and negative Y. I could be totally wrong. I'll connect it, I'll see what happens, and then we'll go from there, okay? So I'm going to start with the X. Now to see this, I'm just going to view that spherical transform. And then I'm going to start connecting. So positive X goes here. Oh, I think that's going to connect to negative X also. There we go. So negative X will go there. No, sorry, it's Z. Positive Z, negative Z. There we go. So I had to connect all four of those before it started working. Okay, and then right away you'll see like something is off. Like this is not blending the way that it should be blending, okay? So what I'm going to do is switch my positive Z and negative Z. So right now this is negative and this is positive. So I'm just going to detach these and just swap them. And now we'll see that works out perfect. You can see how it blends from one side to the other side to the other side to the other side. Like that's a perfect flow straight across, okay? Now I'm going to connect in my Y's. You'll notice that there's no Y's down here. They're on this side triangle that I have to pull off. So the first one, I forget, I think it's a positive. Nope, it's negative. So that one I think is negative. Nope, that's positive. There we go. So connect that. And then this one is the other one. Connect that. There we go. Okay, so now we notice something else, that obviously our floor and our ceiling are not matching up too. So what that means is, again, I have those X and Z's kind of messed up a little bit. Oops. It is like a puzzle, a horrible puzzle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate them. Let's try that, okay? So this is positive Z, just so I can keep them in kind of somewhat order. There you go. All right, so this is positive X, positive Z, negative Z, okay? So I'm just going to disconnect these. And then I'm just going to connect them in a little bit different order. Oops. Let me connect the negative Z first, because I think that one will go first. Yeah, so there we go. Let's start with that. So just doing this, probably the next one. Yep, there it is. So if that's that one, then this is probably that. That looks like it matches. And then this one is probably that one, and this one is probably that one. Perfect. Yep, so that's it, okay? So now we broke this apart into a cube, and now we put it back together. Now that seems pretty pointless because we really didn't do anything, but here's where the magic's gonna come in. So one of these images here, this one, is just this round piece. I wanna take this image into Photoshop and fix that white square so we don't see that white circle. So I'm gonna take it from here, and I'm gonna write this out. So I'm going to put this into my, yes, images is fine, and we'll call this cleanup bottom.tiff. This is going to have to be a 32-bit float, okay? This is an HDR, so we have to make sure that we're sending out an HDR. A TIFF is an HDR. I guess we should just make sure we keep the same format. Yeah, let's just do that. So I'll save it as an HDR also, just so it's, you know, not losing anything, just in case. And then I'm going to render this out. Okay, it's only one frame, so it shouldn't take too long. And then I'm going to open this up into Photoshop. There it is. It's still a 32-bit image, so I can still adjust it. You can even see, like, there's a 360 cam. And then I'm just going to fix this, right? So very similar to anything else we've done in here. If we can find another image that maybe has some of that data in there, like this image here, I should probably grab this image too and use that pattern to clone stamp over that area, okay? Or I think that one would work better, I think, yeah. All right, so I'm going to write this in. And then I will call this one clone source. Oops. .hdr render. All right, cool. So now I can just take a piece of this. And this doesn't have to be incredibly clean. You can see, obviously, like this is kind of off. You don't have to worry about fixing up everything. My main concern with this one is just this bottom piece. It's stretching it out too much. Let's maybe make it. You can go a little bit bigger, but not too much. So I'm starting off with this method, and then I will go through and kind of clean it up a bit more. So I'm going to merge these together, scoot this over. That should be good. And then, oops, I'm typing up there. I'm going to use some clone stamping here to get rid of that. It's so weird, it's like actually coming through. All right. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to copy this and then paste it and then put it there. And maybe just resize that a bit. All right, that works. All right, so now I can go through and let's say use the healing brush. Where's that? Right there. Or spot healing. Nope, I can't use that because I'm in a 32-bit image. I guess just rubber stamp. And take the opacity down like that. Go. Maybe I'll put a mask on here and then start erasing this. Okay, so I'm doing it kind of quick just so you can see the rest of that. Oh, it's still showing that. This must be, no, it's pretty soft, yeah, okay. There we go. Okay, so we'll pretend that that's done. It obviously needs some more work here and some more color adjustments. So I'm just going to save this as cleaned bottom. And I will not save layers, and I will save it again as an HDR. Okay, or maybe I'll call it clean up bottom fin, and then finished. So now what I need to do is I'm going to load in this image. So I'm just going to hit read and go to cleaned up bottom, finished, yes. And then just connect this into there. And so now if I look at my image here, you'll see that that HDR no longer has a big white spot on the bottom, okay? So that's the whole point of this assignment, is just to be able to do that. Now you could go a bit further and clean up, let's say, this straighten up some of these too if you got the time. But like I said, I'm more concerned you get that big white spot gone because that's the major part of that, okay? Because that would be something that if you did bring it into your 3D program and you rendered with it, then it wouldn't work. And then when we output this, you're going to just write the entire thing as your last name underscore HDRPrep.hdr. So this one, you'll turn in your image. There's no sheet for this one because it's pretty simple. You can fill out the sheet yourself. I still need one, but I'm not walking you through it. It's just going to have your node graph just like before, and you'll turn in your image. That's the only two things you're turning in. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You could probably do this one in a couple hours. Okay, once you have that thing loaded and then you have this set up, it's not a huge deal. Okay? Yes, sir.
It's not about this kind of stuff about the banner replacer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever write out a sheet?
No, we just did that in class.
Okay.
We just like talked about it.
That's what I think.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, just that.
Okay. No? All right.